Hey, what's up, fellas? How we doing? Matt Antonelli here, answering your questions today. Today's question, I've gotten this a lot, especially from dads. It's, what role did my dad play in my baseball career from a young kid until pretty much the end of my career, or even now? So we'll take a few minutes to break that down for you guys. So if you go way back to when I was young, 6, 7, 8, 9, pretty much starting in Little League, my dad was he was my coach for most of my career in Little League. My 10, 11, and 12 years, which are kind of like the main Little League years, he was the head coach of the team. Going back before that, I think he usually helped out or was an assistant coach. And so just to give some background, my dad played baseball in high school and college, and so he has, a baseball background. And I coached travel ball and all that stuff for a long time. So he's coached high school ball now for I don't know how many years, probably like 30 something years or something like that. So he's always been in the game. So he was pretty much my main coach. And outside of team stuff, he's the guy he coached me there as well, whether it was throwing BP to me, hitting me ground balls, playing catch, all that stuff. So, usually when I went down when I wanted to do baseball, I'd usually ask my dad, can we go down to the park and hit or field or whatever? And he was usually the one that did that with me, or was almost always the one that did that with me. So that was kind of the role as a young player. He was my main coach. When I turned 13, that was kind of the first time where he wasn't my actual coach. I ended up starting to play some travel ball at 13 years old. Back then, that was kind of the first year you could do it. I know nowadays you can play, like when you're 5U, you can play like 5U travel ball, but when I was playing, travel ball was not what it is today, and there was far less teams. And so that was kind of the transition I made from being coached by my dad all the time to coached by somebody else. Now, with that being said, he continued to kind of be, he was at all the games. So my dad hasn't missed very many games in my career. I actually can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember a game that he missed, other than some games in college and obviously pro ball where we're traveling around the country. He still made a lot of those, but he was always there. So he's probably knew my game better than anyone, better than any of my coaches, just because he'd seen me kind of progress from a young player all the way up. And so even more than me, because I can't, as a player, you can't see yourself swing, especially back then. There wasn't, we used to take videos. I have some videos of myself when I'm like 12 and 13. It's on like the old school big VHS tapes. And so it's not like you can watch yourself a lot as a hitter back then. So he knew my swing better than probably anybody. And so a lot of times when I wasn't hitting well, he's the person that I would go to for help. He would probably tell you that I didn't listen to anything he said quite frequently. There's been a lot of times, especially when I got older, I'd go to college and he would say, like, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I would say, yeah. And then, my college coach would tell me that I'm doing something wrong. And I'd call my dad and be like, yeah, they told me to fix this. And it feels really good. I'm really swinging the bat well now. And he'd say, you're an idiot. I've been telling you that for like 6 months. And so that's kind of how, again, he knew my swing really well, followed it a lot. And, as I moved up throughout high school and then to college ball, and even into professional ball, like when I was years when I was struggling, he was probably trying to figure out what was wrong with my swing probably even more than I was at times. So he's pretty invested in my career as a coach, and, obviously really helped me develop throughout my life. I think, we talk a lot to our players about, it's not, you get better obviously when you go to team practices and you're working with your team. But if that's all you're doing, then, you can be decent at baseball. But if you really want to be a really, really good player, it's the work that you do outside of your team practices that matter, especially when you're a younger player, when you're playing travel ball or little league or whatever it is, or even high school, it's not every day. And so there's a lot of opportunities to practice and do work outside of your team stuff. And so, a lot of my development came from those hours where we'd go down to the park or go to the batting cage and work on things outside of the other stuff. And, I'm really lucky, and players that are able to get somebody, have somebody, whether it's, a dad or a relative or, a really good friend or whoever it is, they're able to get some of that work in with. I think that is huge for players to continue to develop at a really high rate and get a lot of work in. So, and that continued all the way up throughout my career. Like every year in professional baseball, when I came home, in pro ball, there's really no structure outside of the season. So when you go home, it's like you can either do the work or you can do nothing. Like you can go home and sit on the sofa for 4 straight months or 3 straight months and then come back to spring training if you want. No one really does that, but it's up to you at that point. It's your career. No one's holding your hand. And so as a pro ball player, when I used to come home as a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, 27-year-old, whatever, my dad would usually be the one, actually was always the one, where we'd go at night, usually later at night, we'd go up to the cage and, he'd flip to me, be the guy who puts it on tee, videotape me, throw me BP, hit me ground balls, all that stuff. So all the way up until the last game that I played when I was, I stopped playing in 2013, 4 years ago, I was, 28 years old. He was pretty much the one that worked out with me every day. And so, I didn't even mention this, going back, nowadays it's like everyone has a personal trainer and everyone goes to a strength and conditioning coach from the time they're like 8 years old up. That wasn't very prevalent back in the day either. So when I started working out, back in high school was the first time, my junior year was the first time I really started working out. Now I know that seems like really late, but back then, like guys didn't start working out really young like they do now. My dad was like my weightlifting buddy. So we'd go after school and we'd go down to the local, gym, and he'd be the guy spotting me or working out with me. So obviously a really big role in my baseball career, helping me get to where I got to eventually. And the cool thing is now is that with Antonelli Baseball, my dad's been a coach with us since we started 5 years ago. So he coaches our 16-year-old team, I coach our 17-year-old team, and we run all the practices together. So now we're able to both coach. So I feel kind of old now, but so it's pretty cool to be able to go from probably the age of 5 when I first started playing baseball until now, and we're still doing baseball together. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of an idea of kind of the baseball relationship with my dad and I and how it's transpired over the years. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Share the video with all your friends. Give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Check out the description box below. I've got a bunch of stuff down there for you guys to check out. And that's all I got, guys. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later.